certainly not least, as part of the formal presentation, we have Gary Pennington, who will also be joined with Ben Farias. Gary is our newest member of the family. Gary will be starting up our attestation and internal audit services through our sister company, which is RAD LLC. So I will hand it off to Gary and Ben to talk about pandemic planning, or execution for that matter.
Thank you, Radhika. So if you aren't scared at this point from everything we've said, don't worry. There is a framework. There is a possibility to round this all up into a nice bow and package. There's a lot of things that we covered, and starting with the risk assessment process, saying what have we got, what are our biggest risks, and how do we address those? Finding out what those critical processes are, and making sure that we identify only the critical processes, because when we're getting our business up and running, we don't care about some of the smaller service sides of things that may not be critical for our customers. We care about getting customer service first. So how do we make sure that happens? Make sure that those critical processes are identified in that risk assessment. I think we've talked about vendor analysis and vendor, vetting our vendors and making sure that they're on board with everything. That's also critical to this process, but you want to make sure that not only are they that they are strong, but you may have to in some cases implement redundancies as well, or have a backup plan, because you're only going to be as strong as your weakest link. And if they are a super critical vendor, then you may need to have a backup plan for them, because you never know what type of situation is going to happen. Communication is one of those areas that is very critical to this process. Obviously, through being isolated off into our various sequestered places, we're all communicating virtually, but knowing who to contact and what to contact them for is very critical. I had a client exactly a month or two ago, for example, told me, he said, I'm not going to be concerned about maintaining a list of critical contacts, for example, government contracts or whoever I need to, because when the time comes, I'll look them up and I'll find them. I got a call from him 2 or 3 days ago saying, I wish I would have talked to you back. I wish I would have taken your advice back then, because now I don't know who to contact. So being prepared on knowing what to communicate, who to communicate with, and when to communicate is critical. The last piece of this thing that I think is really important is really building a business continuity plan that is scenario based, not just having a plan for a pandemic, for example, but also planning for something as a tornado or a fire or any kind of thing. What do you do in certain situations? Certain situations may not require the full implementation of your business continuity plan, but it also may cover all of the different possibilities. So think about it from scenarios as well. What if we had a flood? And what do we do in those cases? So think about the different options and how it can impact the vendor. It may not take out a vendor in one situation, but it would take them out in another. So you want to think about whatever takes them out or makes that weak link go away. You want to think about how it can go away. One of the last pieces, I guess, that you want to implement into your business continuity plan is, learning from your mistakes. You want to have a desktop exercise. That's one of the critical pieces is not only just having a plan on paper, but also communicating it out to everybody, letting them practice it. I had one client who, on a periodic basis, they would come into the branch and say, we just had a fire next door. What are you going to do? And they would start the stopwatch and just let everybody try and figure out what it would do. Obviously, they knew it was a mock setting and there wasn't it was a test, but they also got to figure out, what the pieces were and how people reacted. So you want to be able to test your business continuity plan as best you can. you know, and take those lessons learned, bring them back into the cycle, and revise, improve, and make it a circular process of continuous improvement. The last thing I want to bring up is that, you know, resources are always tough when you're talking about putting together a business continuity plan. So, you know, to the extent possible, leverage those resources that you can that could have cross-functional type of expertise. Internal audit is always a good resource because they tend to have a view that crosses multi-departments and multi-facets. So to the extent, you know, if you've got an internal audit department that can assist you, this would be a good task for them to take on. One area that I did want to cover, and I haven't quite got there yet, is that ISO came up with a new standard about a month and a half ago. It's hot off the presses, called ISO 22301, and it covers business continuity. It is an excellent framework to look at when you're trying to implement all this. It doesn't give you the granular detail. It leaves you that detail for yourself, but it does give you a framework to think within and make sure that you've got all of those elements addressed. So that's a critical resource. We can help you, point you in the right direction to come up with, you know, any type of information you need on that one. It's usually the website that they have is pretty informative. So by all means, do your research. But I've been able to find some pretty good information on that one as well. So if you need to, contact me and I can give you some good places to look. So Ben, you want to wrap it up with what your last piece is?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just emphasize the importance of testing. You know, my experience is you could have on paper the most wonderful pandemic plan, and then when that pandemic actually occurs and you haven't actually ever tested the plan, you find out all these gaps and holes. And so I can't emphasize the importance of periodic testing of your plan. Test your communications methodology, whether you're going to use a website or you're going to use a call tree or texting, but make sure, you know, that your staff understand that if they don't, you know, you send out a general message, and then if they don't hear from somebody in their chain within so many, then they call the next person, etc. The other thing is when you're going through these testings, is you need to establish succession plans. You know, who, if manager A becomes incapacitated, they're homesick with the virus, or God forbid somebody passes away, who is the person that's going to assume those responsibilities? It's a difficult thing to do, but it's important so that your credit union can continue operating when it's you know stressed during a pandemic. Anyway, those are my comments. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, Radhika.
Wait, I have a question. Yeah, I have a question for Gary and Ben. I've had a lot of questions from our credit union members, clients, and other financial institutions. Since this is an actual live implementation of our pandemic plan, this is not a tabletop test or any other form of test. And I know that we will all get past this. What is your recommendation to gather everybody to reevaluate the plan that they had to execute, reevaluate the RTOs, reevaluate what worked and what doesn't work, and can you document this essentially as a live test?
You can definitely take lessons learned. I mean, what I would recommend each of you do after this whole thing settles down and we've had a chance to catch our breath is to really do a good post-mortem on what happened, what failed, what you can do better, how you can improve the process. And then, when you're looking at the vendors, make sure you got that supply chain taken care of. Evaluate where you need to focus your efforts and where you need to bolster it. it's not only a desktop exercise, this is a real exercise. So, you know, a lot of people got caught off guard on this one, but for sure, you can learn from this thing and build that into your business continuity plan. If you don't have one already, it's a great place to start and say, this happened last time, what do we need to do to prevent it? And then use the frameworks, like I said, you know, ISO